Hello guys, welcome to the channel Respect Aviation. Let's get into the video about the story of Indian Airlines Flight 605. The crash of Flight 605 was one of the major crashes that happened in the history of aviation, where the flight gets crashed onto golf course while the time of approach in Bengaluru HAL airport on 14th February 1990. Due to pilot's error, many passengers lost their lives and some survived. There were 146 passengers on board, including 7 crew members consisting of 2 pilots and 5 cabin crews. It was Airbus A320, the most sophisticated aircraft in the skies, registered as VTEPN, which was a domestic flight scheduled to take off from Bombay on 12 pm and reach Bengaluru on 1 pm. ICAO flight number IAC 605, flight origin from Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj International Airport, Bombay, destination Hindustan Airport, Bengaluru. Let's look into conditions of an A320. Since it was a brand new aircraft and this was the third flight of the day, all the aircraft conditions seemed good. Its obvious plane had 2 pilots. In command of the flight was 46-year-old Captain Kyril Fernandez. In 1989, Fernandez got his co-pilot rating on Airbus A320. In total, he had 9,307 hours of flight, in which only 68 hours on A320. He was under the supervision of Captain Satish Kopuchkar. He had about 255 hours on Airbus A320, and he had been to France to learn all the ins and outs of the A320. Plane took off from Bombay at 12 pm. They got connection from Bengaluru ATC, then to reach Bengaluru by 1:04 pm. They also talked about the weather conditions at Bengaluru airport, and it was pretty good weather with 2000 feet clouds over the airport and wind were at 5 knots, and they had 10 kilometers of visibility. Around 12:44 pm, they were getting slightly close to landing, and they had got clearance to land on BLR airport on runway 09. As approach required to descend 6,000 feet 11 miles before the airport, then 4,500 feet 7 miles before the airport. And as per glide slope, they should not descend below 3,280 feet at 1 pm as the plane keeps descending. At this stage, they disengaged the autopilot. They continued with the final checks and prepared for landing. But plane was above the glide slope. It wasn't so high, but it's something that the pilots they had now intercepted the correct glide slope. Feels everything is in right way, but the captain senses that something is wrong. Radio altimeter kept calling at their altitude like 40, 30, 20. Ideally, when you hear this radio call out, you should be very close to the runway, but the runway 09 was far away from the plane. But it was too late. The plane touched down before Bengaluru HAL airport runway and got crashed into the golf course. Although there were 146 souls on the board, in which 7 crew members and 139 passengers. Along with them, 92 passengers had taken their last breath and 54 passengers survived with some injuries. Let's look into the causes of this air crash. After this accident, many authorizers are taken to investigation of Flight 605, and they find some causes of this accident. Mainly, the crash was attributed to pilot error during final approach. Secondly, the pilot inadvertently allowed the aircraft to descend below the minimum descent altitude with sufficient visual confirmation of the runway. This led to the plane striking trees, a boundary wall, and eventually crashing short of the runway. The results of the investigation were the Indian investigation team ruled that the probable cause was the pilots selecting the open descent or flight idle control mode rather than glide slope capture, allowing the flight to sink far below the correct flight path. They further failed to advance the throttle or pull up even after the radio altitude fallouts as the aircraft approached landing. After the crash, the Indian Investigation Committee issued 62 recommendations to the Indian Directorate General of Civil Aviation (DGCA), including a time recording on the air traffic control tape and the formation of several aviation operational issues. There is no maintenance error found on A320. All the frames, engines and fuel etc. set to good. Let's look into the preventive measures. This crash wouldn't happen if the pilots had taken any one of the following actions, such as Step 1. If the vertical speed mode of 700 feet as asked for by Captain Fernandez at about DFDR 294 seconds had been selected and aircraft had continued in speed or vertical speed mode. Impact of this action is the aircraft could have maintained a controlled descent in speed vertical speed mode, preventing an excessive descent rate. Step 2. If both the flight directors had been switched off between DFDR second 312 to 317. Step 3. By taking over manual control of the thrust, disconnecting auto thrust system and manually pushing the thrust lever to TOGA at or before DFDR 320 seconds, which means 9 seconds to first impact on golf course. The above three factors mentioned by the court in fielding number 20, it has some other factors. There was also criticism of inadequate training and familiarization with the Airbus A320 systems. Accident marked one of the major incidents involving the Airbus A320, drawing attentions of complexities of its fly-by-wire technology and the need for rigorous pilot training. It also led to change in the Indian Airlines training protocols for advanced aircrafts. They claimed that the aircraft systems were too confusing and that the crew of the Flight 605 was struggling to prevent the crash. Another A320 crash less than 2 years later, which occurred under similar circumstances, led to design improvement to the flight control until and numerous safety recommendations. This crash remains a significant event in Indian aviation history and serves as a reminder of the importance of adhering to strict operations and safety guidelines. This was about the accident of Indian Airlines Flight 605. Thank you for watching. Do like, share and comment on this video. Stay subscribed to the channel for more informative videos of aviation. If you are interested, please check out the description to get full details about investigation which is provided by High Court of Karnataka and DGCA.